Living in Harmony, Southern Illinois residents house musicians to support classical music festival. That's cool. In Carbondale, this is happening in Carbondale, each summer, Josh Schlachter packs up his 102-year-old violin and leaves the Grand Rapids Symphony in Michigan to perform for 2 weeks at the Southern Illinois Music Festival. He is one of many singers and instrumentalists who flock to the region's premier classical music event from universities and orchestra across the country. And thanks to his hosts, Joe and Lane Hudgens, he always feels at home. Schlachter, which I'm probably mispronouncing his name, is one of over 60 Southern Illinois Fest participants staying with the host family this year, according to music director Ed Benyes. It's a partnership that began around the festival's birth 15 years ago and is vital to its success, Benyes said, saving tens of thousands of dollars each year that can be put toward attracting talent like Schlachter. Hosts are compensated with free tickets to every show, but the friendships they built over the years are a greater reward, said several local families. We are family, said Paul and Kathy Hare, who has hosted French horn player Kurt Civilette for the last 9 years. He's a fantastic person. The three dine together during Civilette's summer stays and enjoy playing with Civilette's dogs, whom he often brings along. It is an opportunity to get to know professional musicians and know that they're people, Kathy Hare said, and it supports fantastic music that we don't often have in Southern Illinois. So this is a really feel-good story. Basically what happens, this is a smaller music festival. They probably don't have a ton of money. One of the ways that the community gets involved and helps is that they house some of these musicians. Keep in mind, we talked about symphonies and we covered the Chicago strike. When you're a musician in a symphony, you usually start out in smaller orchestras that don't pay as much. And you kind of have to pay your dues, and you want to get that gig with the Chicago Symphony or Boston or New York or London. And once you get that gig, you get a pretty good salary. You get compensated very well for what you do. You're also one of the best players in the world. But you really work your way up to that point, unless, of course, I guess if you're, talented enough, you kind of might get a really great opportunity right away if you're, that exceptional of a player, I'd imagine. I don't know for sure, but typically, you work your way up. And I'd imagine, for instance, in this article, I'd imagine somebody playing in the Grand Rapids Symphony in Michigan, they probably play in a couple other smaller symphonies to make ends meet. And they're probably getting by, making a living, but, they're probably not swimming in it, so to speak, They're probably, getting by, making a average salary at best. So when somebody can house them for a music festival, that goes a long way. Because maybe housing can't be provided for all the musicians, or maybe they, they kind of got to do it out of their own pocket. So, and I will say that, in my experience as a touring performer, I've done Couchsurfing before, and, comics, we really have we kind of have our own sort of punk rock network, if you will, where, you stay with other comics and other comics will stay with you and you try to just pay it forward. And I know for me, when I was living in my car and I was just going from gig to gig, if it wasn't for the generosity of other comics and other people in the community, and also, my friends and family and just people I knew throughout the country, and the occasional Couchsurfing experience, I wouldn't have been able to pull it off. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to get by. I had those nights that I spent in my car, sure. But I usually, most of the time, had a couch. And it was through the generosity of other comics, and it was through, stuff like that really helped me get by. And even still these days, I occasionally will crash with friends on the road, and it certainly helps. I'm going out east on the next tour I'm going to be doing, at least as of the recording of this. The tour might be over by the time you see this clip. But as of the recording of this, I'm going to be on the East Coast. And, I have a lot of friends out on the East Coast because I grew up in Pittsburgh, which is not East Coast, but, in that area. So a lot of my friends live in different East Coast cities now. So I am crashing with friends a good bit on this run and, help save some pennies. And plus, for me personally, I feel a lot better when I see familiar faces. And I feel like a lot of touring performers, they feel that way. Where, sometimes you get a certain anxiety going on the road. And for me, I was in a very bad car accident in 2013. Ever since that happened, I get a little bit of anxiety whenever I go on the road now. Whenever I go on the road, I have a little bit of anxiety. And it's been that way ever since that car accident. And I'm sure that has something to do with it. It was a pretty crazy experience. My car basically flew across a couple lanes of traffic because I got sideswiped by a Sherman-Williams truck. So I got sideswiped, it hit me, I went flying across traffic. And, I was totally lucid. So I was thinking I might get hit and killed, because I was flying across traffic on a highway, just going across multiple lanes of traffic. If a car had been coming and if it would have hit me, that probably would have been it, because it probably would have hit me head on. Anyway, miraculously, nothing hit me. I hit a median, and I had some injuries, but, for the most part, I was okay. Sleeping was a bit of a pain in the ass because my ribs were pretty jacked up, but anyway, ever since then, I've had a certain anxiety whenever I go on the road, and seeing familiar faces really helps with that. So sometimes crashing with friends, it's not even, not only, does it help economically, but it also kind of helps me emotionally too, to kind of be around a familiar face and, catch up with somebody. So it kind of has value on multiple angles. But anyway, so this is just another, for instance, where they have a program where you get to make new connections. And I've gotten to make new connections because I do house shows now. And when you do something like that and you meet wonderful people throughout the country and you make these connections and, you stay in somebody's home. And of course, there's a screening process through all this. We always Skype together. We talk and we, exchange, a lot of back and forths via phone and via, conversation and via Skype. And so, it's a well-vetted thing. But, that experience for me has been overwhelmingly positive, and it's connected me to new people, and it's connected those people to other people. Sometimes people will tweet me and they'll have a photo of all of them hanging out, and they all met at one of my house shows. So they came to this person's home for the house show. They all met. They realized they live in the same town and they're like-minded and they have some of the same interests. So they'll tweet me a photo. Hey, Ron, we all went bowling tonight here in, San Antonio or Richmond, Virginia, or wherever it may be. And usually I'm just by myself, not doing anything that night. And I think, man, if only I lived in that town, I'd have something to do. No, sometimes I got a show or whatever else, but, So anyway, stuff like this, when communities really get together and try to do what they can for the arts, it kind of reinvigorates or, gives a nice little jump start to your faith in humanity. At least it does for me. So, I feel like this festival should be housing musicians, but if they can't, and a lot of festivals can't, this is really cool that the community steps in. All right, so that's a feel-good story. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your